Have you ever wanted to know what's inside that creepy abandoned building down the street? What if the legends and stories are actually true? Would you be too scared to go inside a house that people say it's haunted? Check out these 10 abandoned places around the world that, if you're brave enough, are definitely worth a visit. Leave a like and subscribe to our channel for more videos. Cambashi. Cambashi is considered the biggest ghost city in the world. It was built for 1 million people, but nowadays only 30,000 live there. Construction of the city began in 2003 to accommodate the number of outsiders and miners of Ordos, China. This big city isn't forgotten. All traffic signals are still working, museums and libraries are closed, but completely equipped to welcome visitors. Also, heaters are working in empty and unfinished apartments. The bus stops advertise new products, and sometimes you can even see buses cruising through the empty streets. There are also city bicycles and parks that were never used. People complain that Cambashi lacked supermarkets, clothing shops, department and other convenience stores. They say the apartments of Cambashi are being purchased, but slower than the construction companies were expecting. Incredibly, this didn't stop them, since they're still building new apartments. The Duga Raider. The Duga Raider was once one of the most powerful military facilities in the Soviet Union's communist empire. It can be found inside Chernobyl exclusion zone in Russia. Rumors say the Duga Raider was built to be a station that detects intercontinental missiles. Anyone exploring the land around it can stumble on abandoned vehicles and broken electronic devices that indicates that there was a rushed evacuation shortly after the Chernobyl nuclear disaster. Even decades after the collapse of the Soviet Union, the story behind the Duga Raider still poses more questions than answers, and its true purpose is still not fully understood. Orpheum Theater. Museums and theaters deteriorate quickly if lack maintenance. This is what happened to the Orpheum American Theater, inaugurated in 1912. Initially, it wasn't available to all people, and only the richest could watch Orpheum productions. Nevertheless, the tickets were always sold out months before the shows. Despite that, the theater accumulated debt, and in 1959, Orpheum closed its doors. The government didn't have enough resources to keep it open, and in 1962, the old theater was converted into a tobacco store. Today, a small part of the building is used by a supermarket. The rest is empty, but anyone can go into the theater. People who went there say that even walking in its hallways can be scary. Kolmanskop. This ghost city appeared when diamond was found by workers nearby. The most valuable diamond mine was found in the Kolmanskop region. Quickly, the number of residents grown up and it was enough to build a city. A few years later, there were several houses, a school, a bakery, a hospital and industries. The place even had its own stadium. Obviously, people planned to stay for many generations in Kolmanskop, but soon it became clear that the diamond reserves weren't as big as expected. Besides that, living in the middle of the desert was hard. There was no water and sandstorm happened frequently. After some time, inhabitants decided to leave Kolmanskop. After years abandoned, it sunk in its own sand. Leir Sikhus. In Leir, a small town in Norway, you can find Leir Sikhus, an old psychiatric hospital. It opened in 1926 and it was initially a 12-building complex, but from 1985 to 1990s, 9 of the buildings were closed. In 1920s, the asylum was used for experiments on patients, using many psychotropic substances, electroconvulsive therapy, lobotomy, and other terrible and scary procedures. Basically, rumors say that patients were used as guinea pigs for new medication that the pharmaceutical industry had trouble testing elsewhere. Obviously, those tests resulted in many deaths. Inside the abandoned buildings, beds, medical equipment, and even personal belongings can be found. Even though most of the facilities are empty and gradually decomposing, surprisingly, there are buildings that remain working and attending patients. The Berengaria Hotel. The Berengaria Hotel opened its doors in 1931 and closed them in 1984. During this period, it was a luxurious hotel with a casino and even a nightclub. The story says that the three brothers that owned the hotel all passed away from mysterious circumstances, which increased the interest of people in the hotel. As a result, people say that the hotel is haunted, and there were several reports of screaming or crying coming from the hotel. Besides, there are stories of a ghost manager that now wanders in the hallways. Furniture, beds, clothes and old postcards are still lying around in the hotel rooms. Recently, the hotel was bought and the new owners plan to reopen it. Would you go there? New World Mall. A long time ago, this building used to be a 4-story mall, but for unknown causes, it was almost completely burned down in 1999, and since then, the building remains abandoned. It doesn't have any roof, and the basement is still flooded because of the rain. Some years ago, people started fish breeding there, and eventually, the whole 500 square meters area was full of fishes. All those tilapia fishes were actually brought to the abandoned mall to get rid of all the mosquitoes that the floods brought to near villages. Shops around the place even sell fish food to tourists who want to visit the flooded mall. A sign written in Thai outside the building says, "Do not throw anything but food fish in the water," in an effort to protect the animals. Poveglia Island. This island is acknowledged by many as the scariest place in the world, located in the north of Italy. It was first used for military purposes, with a wide range of artillery and fortified buildings. This was around the 14th century, but things got scarier over time. Back in the bubonic plague period, in the 18th century, this island was used to keep sick people separated from the healthy population. According to researchers, around 160,000 people had a terrible end there, and because of that, many locals believe the island is haunted. Even with a bad reputation, someone decided to open a psychiatric hospital in the 1960s, but years later, it was closed. Oriental Resort. Located in the Hachijojima volcanic island, the entrance to the Oriental Resort is prohibited. The place is abandoned, but it was well preserved due to the lack of use since its closing 13 years ago. The hotel faces the ocean and can be seen from afar by boats and ships. Despite the building being surrounded by plants and vegetation, the complex closed in 2005 because of low profit. Locally, inhabitants believe in supernatural events, and they used to tell stories about ghost tourists who visited the hotel, which gave it a bad reputation. A lot of furniture and personal objects were left behind, as well as security equipment that was left in the storage when the hotel closed. At the time of its opening in 1963, it was one of the largest hotels in Japan, but now, unfortunately, it's just a beautiful building left behind. Boeing 737-200. This airplane isn't haunted, but this fact doesn't make it less interesting. The Boeing is a simple commercial aircraft, and has been sitting in a small area of south of Bali since 2008. The owner of the plane said he would like to open a restaurant inside it, so it could become a point of interest, but this still hasn't happened. What do you think? I wonder what kind of food they would serve in a place like this.